Welcome to the Economic Archer podcast. If you recall from the very first one, I told you these first several are going to build on each other. So I'm going to just give a quick recap of what we discussed in the previous two and then pick up from there. So in the first podcast, we talked about the fact that since 1913, when the current money for the United States began, Federal Reserve was put in 1913, and since then, this dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power. And if you remember, we were asking ourselves, which is better to store your wealth, your purchasing power in? Fiat currency or things that are apprised of this? Even equities, ultimately, their value is derived in US dollars. Or would it be better to store in gold? And one of the things that I gave as an illustration, if you remember, I showed the chart that showed that 97% of the purchasing power of the dollar was gone now since 1913. But I also showed a chart of gold where the purchasing power has actually gone up. Those statistics are pretty graphic. When you look at what it would take to buy the same amount of goods that $100 would buy in 1913. Today it would cost $2,920. So roughly 29 times more money to buy the exact same amount of goods. With gold, however, today gold will buy 3.22 times what it would buy in 1913. Said a different way, it takes 68.5% less gold to buy the same amount of goods that it would buy in 1913. So it more than maintains its buying power. The next video, we talked about what if we're going to invest in precious metals, and I said you don't have to wait till there's gold or silver backed money. You can put money into gold and silver right now. Which is better? Gold or silver? And I gave several factors that you need to consider to make the right decision for you. If you remember, those were tolerance for volatility, silver to gold ratio, how many ounces of silver can you get for what it costs to buy an ounce of gold, affordability. If you've got only $100 to invest, you're going to invest in silver because you're not going to be able to afford even a 10th ounce of gold for $100. Availability. At the time you're ready to purchase, every potential form of silver or gold may not be available, so that's going to be a factor. The premiums. Remember I gave the example, if there's only one house on the market and there's 10 people wanting to buy it, it can really drive the price up. By the same token, if the form of silver or gold that you're wanting to buy is in high demand, the premium's going to be higher. Now, the good news on that is when you go to sell it, you're going to get a lot more for selling it than you would for an item that has a lower premium. But that is a factor you need to take in. The other is storage capacity. How much room do you have to store the metal? Now, that doesn't really matter if you're going to invest $10,000. You can store $10,000 worth of gold or silver in a pretty small area. But if you're going to store a lot of money, like $1 million, $2 million, you're going to have to take into consideration how much space that would take, because for it to be silver to equal $1 million, you're talking about roughly, it's going to be 30,000 ounces or so. That's a lot of weight, and it's going to take up a lot of space. So barterability was another thing we looked at. What happened if the electric grid went down? If all the computers were down, you obviously you can't access your cash, because to access your cash, you're going to have to be able to get money from an ATM or go to a bank. Well, they're not going to be able to pull their screens up because the electric grid's down. If you have silver or gold, you're going to be able to get the goods that you need. You just got to find a supplier that will take that. And there's a lot of them that will, and there's more that are going to be willing to do that if the electric grid went down, because otherwise their produce could spoil, or they've just got merchandise sitting on the shelves and they're not making any money from it. The last one was liquidity. When you go to sell, if you're trying to sell 3 or 4 pieces of silver, virtually anybody could cash that out. But if you're trying to cash out an ounce of gold, not everybody's going to have $1,850 to be able to cash you out. So those are all the factors you need to help make the decision on whether or not you're going to put your purchasing power in gold or silver. So I told you on that last one, for me, because the current ratio for silver to gold is 84 ounces of silver equals about the same amount of cost as 1 ounce of gold, I'm investing in silver right now. And I told you that several times over the last 100 years, you've seen the silver to gold ratio go way down. A couple of times it's even gone down in the 15-to-1 range. When that happens, then you could convert your silver into gold and you'll end up with way more gold than if you'd have bought gold right now when it's 84-to-1. We're going to dedicate an entire video to that in the future, but that I told you that's why I'm choosing silver now. So now once you've made the decision that you're going to buy gold or silver, then you need to start considering what forms it comes in and what you want to own personally. And I told you, the first box you have to check, for me, I want to know that if the electric grid went down, I would be able to buy the goods and services I need. So having junk silver, they call it, it's really constitutional silver. I told you, the only money that's recognized by the Constitution is metallic. It's gold or silver. It's not paper currency. That's pretty interesting, wouldn't you say? But anyway, if you've got constitutional silver, silver dimes, quarters, half dollars, you're going to be able to still barter and buy things you need. I would also suggest having some 1 ounce coins, because again, if you just consider how much one of those coins is worth, if you're going to buy a loaf of bread and you have an ounce of gold, well, they're probably not going to have the money to make change for it. But if you've got silver, they're going to be able to easily make change for it. And in a smaller denomination, it's not going to be as much change as if you came in there with 100 ounces of silver. And so that's another consideration. But I sat out a few of the different types of silver, for example, if you're buying silver, that you could purchase. And I just want to walk through what to expect. Okay, so I told you, if you're wanting to accumulate the most ounces that you can, the bigger products are going to have a lower markup. For example, 1,000 ounces of silver, you can buy a 1,000-ounce bar. It's probably this wide by about that tall, and it weighs 62 pounds. But 1,000 ounces times the spot price plus any premium, you're talking about $25,000 or so to buy it. But it's huge, it's heavy. You know, I'm a big guy, but carrying around 62 pounds of silver, that's pretty cumbersome. So you're probably not going to want to have too many of those. But if you've got a large area to store in, you may keep some of your silver in that. But I really like these 100-ounce bars if you're trying to get the most silver for your money. It's almost like if you go to Sam's and you're buying goods and you buy a family pack, which you're buying way more of whatever it is. If it's window cleaner, you're getting 4 containers of window cleaner instead of 1, but you pay less for each container of window cleaner. By the same token, if you buy 100 ounces of silver, you're paying less per ounce of silver. Another item that you can invest in, this is a 10-ounce piece of silver. It's a bar. As you can see, it's very easy to handle. It's not that heavy. It costs less per ounce generally than a 1-ounce denomination would be. And you can still store a lot of these, so it's pretty handy. These are some 1-ounce coins. This is just a basic silver round. It's 1 ounce of silver, 0.999 purity. And that'll cost you a little bit less than if you get into, say, a sovereign coin. Like, I don't know if you can see this, but this is a Krugerrand, and so it's from South Africa. It's going to cost you a little bit more per ounce than just a basic silver round, Again, it'll sell for more when you go to sell it, especially if you go back to the place that you bought it from, or if you sell it retail price yourself. Here's another one. This is a silver maple leaf. And you can see really cool looking coins. I got to tell you too, when you start investing in gold and silver, I think the thing that stuck out to me the most is like take $100 bill and hold it in your hand. It's a piece of paper. It's $100. You know, you're thankful that it'll buy something. But when you grab the equivalent of $100, something like this, that's 4 ounces of silver. When you hold this, you know, I mean, it feels like money. It sounds like money. And here's the other thing. Silver is used for so many things that you know it has value. It doesn't matter if it's made in the form of like a dime. Silver is the best conductor of electricity, so it's used in virtually anything that has any kind of electrical component, whether you're dealing with a cell phone like I'm filming this with, you're dealing with a computer, you're dealing with your refrigerator, your microwave. But like things like solar panels have a significant amount of silver, and they increase in efficiency as you increase the amount of silver in them. Battery operated cars, the batteries have silver in them. Even things like when you think of weapons like Tomahawk missiles, if you remember our country's known to utilize a Tomahawk missiles, they hold, I hear it's upwards of 2 ounces of silver in each one of them. So just knowing that silver is used for so much, you just know you're holding something of value as compared to a dollar that is a promissory note that our government is going to pay its debts. Totally, totally different. So what I want you comfortable with though is so that I know for me, once I made the decision that I wanted to buy gold or silver, invest in that to store my buying power, then I wanted to kind of get a feel for what are the different types of products, what to look for, what to look out for. Now, I want to touch on numismatic coins. If you go to a large retail outlet, they may try to push you toward numismatic coins. And let me tell you what they're going to use as their rationale. For example, gold at one point back in 1933, the government confiscated it. They reached out to the owners of gold and they said, we'll give you what the market value of the gold is. And so they took up a lot of the ounces of gold for the people that were willing to give it back. And immediately after the government got the gold in their hands, then they repriced it higher, which effectively took away buying power from the people that in good faith gave it to the government because they needed it. Well, the only coins they couldn't confiscate were the coins that were of collector type value. So they were older coins. Maybe they weren't as many of them made. That obviously happened before. Could it happen again? Sure, it could happen again. It's never happened with silver, so that's another reason to invest in silver. But for me, I have a higher risk tolerance. I don't think they would ever do that again. You know, the American people saw what happened, and they certainly, if they go to call it back in and they're going to pay you for it, people are going to read in the history books and remember what happened when they in good faith gave their money back and were compensated for it, and the government immediately repriced it higher and they effectively lost 60% of their purchasing power. People are going to look at that and they're going to be awfully skeptical to do that again. So I'm not that concerned about that. I would say if you are thinking about doing that, I would think about talking to somebody like Lynette Zhang, who you can find her on YouTube. She has podcasts periodically. She is a wealth of knowledge. The information that she can afford to you can be helpful on a number of different levels. So I would strongly consider checking into her anyway, just to hear what she has to say. But if you were going to buy numismatic coins, I would go to somebody like that. I wouldn't go to somebody with one of the large retailers to buy those, because they're going to push on you whatever works best for them. And it's not necessarily going to be a great expenditure of your money. I would stick with more of the bullion and the products where you can get the most number of ounces for your money. I hope that's helpful to you. Again, now we know gold and silver are going to store your wealth. We know if you're looking at gold or silver that there's many things you need to consider, and I've shared those with you. Today I talked about some of the different forms of it and what you can expect. And I look forward on the next podcast to being able to go from there and give you some more useful information. Thank you very much.